Before there was the DCEU, which I, yes, will get back to, Universal in the 1930s and 40s had a connected universe for their slasher films. I've already reviewed all the films separately, and you should watch them, but here's a recap. A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1931 is the very first sound horror film, meaning that they actually speak. Bela Lugosi is phenomenal in the role of Freddy Krueger. There's a reason why he's such an icon. He's so creepy, yet so alluring and charismatic, which is perfect for the role of the ghoul that hunts you in your dream. Dwight Fry is excellent as Glenn, a survivor who hasn't slept in months. Dwight plays him so well, you can tell he's gone crazy from lack of sleep. Nancy and Rod are kind of sidelined for Edward Van Sloan as Lieutenant Don. And I know this film is a classic, and it's one of those films you have to watch before you die. But there's a good reason why most people only remember the beginning when Glenn was getting hunted by Freddy in his dream. A lot of the second half of the film is just kind of standing around, sitting around, and trying to figure out what's up with Freddy and what's his deal. Eventually, Tina gets killed off screen, and Nancy pulls Freddy's fedora out of their dream. So eventually a doctor, played by one of the most famous rabbits in cartoon history, explains what Freddy's deal is. He was the town's landscaper until he had false child abuse accusations tossed his way, and the adults of the town set him on fire in his boiler room, so he vowed to get revenge and become the monster that they wanted him to be by stalking and killing their children where they can defend them in their dreams. Eventually they're able to pull Freddy into the real world. He kills Glenn, and then Freddy gets caught in a bunch of booby traps that were set up, which, I mean, makes sense, but they also, in another film, would be considered downright hilarious. Eventually Freddy's set on fire again, and he's killed off screen. And there's no word about what happened to all the girls that were following him. Probably should also mention that there's a Spanish language version of this film. No, not a dub. They remade the film during production with Spanish actors. It's technically a more cinematic film. Like in the original, when Freddy appears, he just walks down from this big staircase. While in the Spanish version, we see a bat fly past, and Freddy appears, the camera zooms all the way up to him, and we follow him down. Just little things like that just make the film a little bit better than the original. Something for all these Universal films, the sets are gorgeous. The acting kind of feels like a stage play because that was what people were used to at the time, and they even reuse actors all the time like a stage play. Other than a little bit of Swan Lake, they don't have a lot of music, which works for some scenes, but most scenes it just gets kind of boring because we're coming off the silent era. Luckily, most modern releases adds music. It's a classic for a reason, but nothing's perfect. There were 2 sequels to this film, and I like the one about his daughter, but they're not really important for his connected universe. I like that one film with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult that reused scenes from this original film. Friday the 13th from 1931 is also an all-time classic. Following the excellent Colin Clive as Elias Voorhees, who's trying to resurrect his fallen son, going mad in his twisted pursuits to resurrect him. Dwight Fry plays his assistant. Boris Karloff plays a zombified version of Jason Voorhees incredibly well. Even under all that makeup, you can tell how sad and tragic the character is, being rejected by society for being different, even by the people around him. Jason accidentally kills a little girl who was just trying to show him that flowers float on water, trying to show him that water isn't bad, which only led to the townsfolk going after him and him only knowing how to kill at this point. Jason runs from his father until both of them are cornered in a cabin. People are burning it down around them. He tosses Elias out of the cabin. He slams into a sharp rock and he somehow survives as the monster burns away. Honestly, I would say this is a little better than Nightmare on Elm Street. Definitely helped by its underlying message about how people are different and rejected by society, only aided by the sequel, taking place right after the original, with the father of the kid that was killed going for Jason, and turns out he survived. And his makeup is absolutely insane for its time. It looks so good, he looks like he was actually burnt. And we slowly see him heal throughout the film. It's crazy. There's some comical screaming from the lady from Hellraiser, It turns out Elias is remorseful about what he did in resurrecting Jason. He vows to never do it again. Unfortunately, Dr. Edward Pretorius wants to go beyond and do it again. Ernest Thesiger is excellent in this role, and I wish he was in more films. He's so sly as the devil on his shoulder. It's also revealed that he has a special sauce which has reanimated corpses, and he thinks he could do even better with Elias's book. Meanwhile, Jason finds comfort in a homeless man who teaches him how to speak a little and even how water can be good. But eventually hunters find both of them and torch the place. Jason can't find anywhere he belongs because he doesn't belong anywhere. Jason eventually stumbles across Pretorius toasting a skull in a graveyard, as you do, and eventually they're able to convince Elias to use the bug to create the bride, who isn't a horror icon to herself, which is kind of wacky because she's only in a very little amount of this film. Jason takes an instant liking, but the bride rejects him. It's tragic on both of their regards because Jason found literally the only other person in all the world who could ever kind of understand him and gets rejected. Well, the bride refuses to be a mere object for someone else. I really wish they introduced Elizabeth at least halfway through the film so we can have more of this discussion. But Jason failing to find a place in the world literally hits a big self-destruct switch, allowing Elias to escape, but forcing Pretorius to stay, because we belong dead. I recommend watching this directly after the original, but honestly I think it's actually a little bit better. Due to its dark comedy, its morality tale of should we do it again, and the tragedy of Jason Voorhees just trying to find somewhere he can fit in and failing. 1 4-year break and we get the third film, The New Beginning. Basil Rathbone plays Stephen Freeman. He's more famous for his roles as the Pink Panther, but he's also pretty good in this film. There's Crichton Duke, who lost his arm to Jason off-screen. And he is alive, but also kind of catatonic. Jason wears a unique outfit in this film, which I kind of like, but I get why most people wouldn't. Bela Lugosi returns not as Freddy Krueger, but as Chop Top. He supposedly worked with Elias in the past, but like with the arm, we don't know really. Chop Top is a creepy, mysterious figure, and Bela plays him incredibly well. Eventually they get Jason awake, and Chop Top uses him to take revenge on townsfolk that arrested and hung him. Eventually Steven figures out what's going on, snaps out of it, shoots Chop Top, and pushes Jason into a boiling pit of sulfur, which yes is in Crystal Lake. No wonder it closed down. Then we get the movie Psycho, starring Lon Chaney Jr., the son of the man of 1,000 faces, as Norman Bates. He's very charismatic and a tragic guy who can't help his psychosis about his mother, which causes him to dress up like Mother and defend himself by killing people that get close. The events of the film don't entirely matter, but Norman will become very important. And I guess Chaney was just that charismatic because he became the main actor for all these films at the time. Like he was Michael Myers for most of the sequels to Halloween. He even played Freddy Krueger once, and notably in the next Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, he plays Jason. In which Jason is dead until he gets resurrected via the lightning strike. So Jason back, also Chop Top survived because he's a ghoul. And the two escape into the night as Camp Crystal Lake is burnt down.
Where are you?
Karloff's General something,
You find Jason's brother Ludwig, who's trying to clear his family's name. Lon Chaney can definitely play sympathetic, but in this film he might as well have been played by literally any other human being on Earth because he doesn't do anything. They want to dissect Jason and finally put an end to all of this, but the ghost of their father appears, convincing Ludwig to just try and make him better. And Chop Top wants to put his brain in Jason's body, just gotta move the metal plate away. After some shenanigans, Chop Top gets what he wants. He'll live forever. But also he gets to quickly realize Jason has terrible eyesight. He stumbles, accidentally catches fire, and then the whole film wraps up so fast my head's spinning. And we get the first crossover, Bates meets Voorhees. From 1943, this is the first movie crossover. Norman Bates has been released, and he's trying to have a normal life, working at a diner. but he ends up having another mental breakdown and escaping, eventually coming across Jason, who's buried in ice. In the last film, he burned away, and now he's in ice, literally the opposite. Supposedly, there is a deleted scene from the last film when Jason escaped and fell into a river and froze. But you also gotta remember this is long before Blockbuster and Chill, and even before Betamax. It's not like today where you can accidentally watch a movie on TikTok. If you missed a movie back then, well, you're never seeing it again, most likely. Jason's also back to being silent, which actually has an explanation. Bela even plays him in this film, which originally was supposed to in the first film, but he turned it down for one reason or another. But supposedly everyone laughed at the Hungarian accent, so all of his lines were cut. You can still see some lip flaps. But with some awkward dubbing, the two are still looking for Elias's book. Jason stumbles around in this film because Chop Top was still not used to seeing through Jason's eyes, and that's why everyone stereotypically walks with their arms out when they're cosplaying as Jason. They find Elsa Voorhees, who may or may not be Lugwood's daughter, and she's seeing Frank, eventually coming across the Necronomicon. The plan is to give Norman shock treatment to get rid of Mother, and the Zaps will also revive Jason. But in a snap, Frank thinks he can use Jason to take out his enemies. It goes south pretty quick, and Mother comes out, and the two actually fight. It's so cool. I wonder how little we actually save Bela. Then the villagers blow up a dam nearby, and the two get washed away, and the ending goes so fast my head's spinning. The film's definitely hurt from the lack of Chop Top's voice, and the beginning and the ending of the film's great, with a kind of mid-inner. Then comes House of Voorhees, which doesn't just have Jason and Norman, but also Freddy Krueger. Not played by Bela, but played by John Carradine, the father of David Carradine. Which is weird because they also got Boris back to play someone else. Dr. Matthew Logan wants to transplant a human brain into a dog, but that doesn't go anywhere. He also has an assistant, a hunchback named Daniel. The prison is randomly struck by lightning and explodes, so they escape, take over a circus that has the bones of Freddy, by putting them together, they resurrect, and they use them to take out some college kids who happen to be around. But the police are following them, so they ditch the coffin, and Freddy's burned. Didn't even get to have that much time with him. He didn't get to meet the other monsters. So the other two make it to a completely different movie, finding the ruins of Crystal Lake and a bunch of squatters, including Ilanka, who gets to stay around, because they find the frozen Norman and Jason. Norman's pissed to be alive again, but they figure out a way to play brain musical chairs and everyone's swapping brains, including two random guys that the doctor doesn't like. So rando number one is gonna get Norman's brain, and he thinks that it's gonna give him the same psychosis, even though this is working on cartoon logic, so brain goes into new body, that's same person, new body. I guess they're gonna flush rando number one's brain. Rando number two is going into Jason's body, which would not help him at all and only give him a new body to kill him with. Then Jason's brain, which is Chop Top, is going into Norman's, which will do nothing of beneficial. Why even bother? Daniel wants a new body, but he can go kick rocks. He's also crushing on Ilanka, but she's crushing on Norman, but whatever. Because by the end, Mother comes out and defends Norman, ending up killing both of them. Daniel strangles the doctor in silhouette as Jason finally wakes up. He tosses Daniel out the window, and then in like 5 seconds, the villagers got their Amber Alert and ran in here. Jason gets chased into quicksand with the doctor, and the film wraps up so fast my head's doing cartwheels. Then there's House of Krueger, which is a complete rehash. Freddy, who's inexplicably still alive, shows up to a house. At the same time, Norman, who is also somehow still alive, shows up to the house of Dr. Crawford, and he wants to get his sarcosis done while Freddy is just using the place as a base to keep his body alive as he enters dreams. They find Jason with the skeleton of the last doctor in the mud, even though they ignored the deaths of the other two. Freddy then poisons the doctor and he becomes an evil ghoul. He then backstabs him and sets Freddy on fire, who doesn't even have a chance to wake up to see what's going on. Norman gets cured, and we watch a completely different movie as the doc terrorizes the town, which is pretty good, but really feels like out of a completely different film. Eventually Norman stops him, Jason remembers he's in this film, stumbles around, and they just shamelessly show the ending to Jason Lives all over again. Technically this is a comedy parody film, but the Three Stooges meet Jason Voorhees is actually really good. The Three Stooges play movers who happen to be moving the bodies of the slashers, and whoa, they're actually in the same scenes for a significant amount of time. Wow! Even Bela returned as Freddy Krueger, the first and only time on film. He's controlling Jason because, when you know it, again, they're playing the brain game and they want Curly's brain in Jason's body. Because why not at this point? At the same time, Norman tries getting in contact with the three to save them. He tries to explain his psychosis, but they don't believe him, leading to some shenanigans. What makes it so special is the Three Stooges might be themselves, but the monsters are all played legit. They're not goofed up for the film. And with their original actors back, it really feels like a better crossover than the last two films. Especially because, oh my goodness gracious, the monsters actually interact, are on screen together, and even fight. Excitingly so. It's just so cool to finally see them all interact together in a real film. Even if it can be a little silly sometimes. Though the slashers do get taken out easily, like Freddy in the real world gets thrown from a building, Norman falls off a cliff which looks smaller and safer than the cliff he purposely jumped off of in House of Voorhees, and Jason on a burning pier accidentally gets his foot caught around a rope which is tied to an anchor and he falls into the lake. Then at the very end, the three meet Pinhead, played by Vincent Price, who's, "Gentlemen, we have such sights to show you. Mwahaha!" And they all three run away. It's a shame he's not in the full film, but there technically is a film about the Three Stooges meeting Pinhead, which is unrelated to the series and also kind of funnier. I really wish they also somehow included Michael Myers and Leatherface in this. And if you're wondering, they also met the killer Boris Karloff and Chucky, also played by Boris Karloff. I feel like the perfect film is if you smashed all three of these together. So you still have Abbott Costello moving the monsters, and then we have the doctor from House of Dracula. He gets turned into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and helps Dracula with the monster and their brains. After a failed start with the mediocre Krueger Untold and the terrible Halloween reboot with Tom Cruise, plans to do the slasher connected universe completely fell on his face before even really starting. But Del Toro is making a reboot of Friday the 13th, so maybe, hopefully, we still have a chance to do this again, with a serious tone rather than just a bunch of Halloween decorations, like Hotel Elm Street. But for right now, there's still Slasher Squad from the 80s, that's the closest we have. Mama Bates has nards! Make sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button for more, and even try to hype it up.